Hey guys, it's Delora Davils here, and I have a book review for y'all. I was definitely taking a break from reading stuff and taking a break from incorporating new things into my practice. So for the last month, that's why you haven't seen book reviews. You've seen me focus more on tarot. So today's book, and I'll reach over and grab it, is The Book of Practical Witchcraft by Pamela Ball. A compendium of spells, rituals, and occult knowledge. I mainly flipped through this one. It was a very, very quick read for being such a big book, but I just want to shout out to the publishers here. This was done by Arcturus Press, so not the typical Llewellyn and the other one, Wiser. Not those two typical ones, but one of the more indie ones. And it's got a beautiful silver edging on it. And at first I thought this was a reprint of her book from 2001. I actually thought this book was a lot older than the early 2000s because it was my mom's and she gave it to me. I'm funny. No, this is a newer book by Pam. This is a newer book, not the 80s like I was thinking. This is the new one. And I have to say, it is a very beautiful book. This is the inside part. It is just, it's very pretty, right? And of course, Pamela Ball is a Wiccan. So we have the Wiccan Reed, or a version of the Wiccan Reed here. She has the true Wiccan Reed back there as well. And of course, we have the very pretty, just like what's on the front. And this is the table of contents. So she really covers a lot of ground here in this book, and it is a beautiful beginner's book. Did I still get something out of it being more, intermediate-ish? Yes, of course I did. I wouldn't have continued to read it if I didn't find it interesting, or if I didn't at least find Pamela Ball to be a compelling writer. She's very informative. She does make a better effort in this book than in her previous book to point out what is Wiccan and what's not, except when it comes to the 3 times rule and the Wiccan kind of harm none stuff, right? When it comes to that, she just says all of that is fact and doesn't point out that that is a purely Wiccan standpoint. Although every now and then, especially in the love spell section, she does talk about how that changes, right? That is part of the Wiccan Reed, and that some people don't necessarily go by that. Anyway, I really like her history of witchcraft section. That was incredibly compelling and very historically accurate. However, I do find that whenever people start talking about the witch trials and stuff, they act like it only ever happened in Europe and that it doesn't still happen today in some parts of the world. It does. Anyway, her tools section, very, very well written. And as you can see in different areas, she has these really, it's just a very pretty book, and I feel like a lot of authors that have very good things to say aren't doing a lot of really pretty stuff in their books, and I feel like this is going to appeal to a lot of teenagers and a lot of mass market folks that need something that's extremely well written, but they also want something that's really flashy and pretty. Right, because this is gilded. Let me gleam it in the light. It's all gilded, silver gilding, and I just love the little bit of Aleister Crowley there. Anyway, and see, look, the different sections all open up to this little piece here, and so I kind of like I like all of the decoration in this book. And again, I'm glad that it has all of this decoration because it is for beginners, and beginners always go for the flashy stuff. There are a ton of really, really flashy looking books like this that are not well written at all. This is a really pretty flashy book you can buy for a beginner, and they're going to love it, and it's going to be informative. And with all of the 3 times rule and harm none do what thou wilt type stuff, I feel like this is a great book to give a teenager, honestly. I don't say that about a lot of books. I don't think I've ever said, hey, this is a great book for a teenager, but this one really is. And so whenever she talks about everything that you're going to need, I do wish that she had pointed out that you don't necessarily need all of these things, but she does talk about what they're for. And I love her breakdown of the elements. Very concise, very beautifully done. Different types of spell working. And she does talk about not magic, which not a lot of people talk about, the not magic. And so what she does is she goes through and she has one little paragraph about each type of magic, right? So a little paragraph, and then she goes in depth. So this is all about candles, different types of candles, things like that. She even goes so far as to talk about the difference between types of candles, like tea light candles, taper candles, votive candles, regular table candles, things like that. And there's some pretty decent little beginner spells in here as well. Let's go back to the table of contents. So now that you can see kind of how the sections are laid out in each major section. So the part 1 is tools, part 2 is spells. Before we go on to part 2, so we were on the different types of spell working here. So this is what I just showed you. She also talks about deities and their worship. She especially talks about the difference between worshiping a deity and just working with one, which I think a lot of beginner books need to discuss the differences of those, right? She also, what she does in this book that she didn't do in her book from the early 2000s, she actually talked about the importance of not culturally appropriating, which we weren't having, you know, mainstream discussions of cultural appropriation. Those discussions were happening, but not in the mainstream, and they weren't being listened to by the majority of people, right? Now that that discussion has become more mainstream and is being listened to, we see it popping up in our magical books as well, which cultural appropriation in magic, people's religions and deities and ways of worship are very important to them. So I love to see it pop up here, that you should be respectful at all times, right? It's just a good practice to have. Like I said, this book has everything for a beginner. The archangels, because she does talk about archangel magic, sacred space, and she has a brief little thing on correspondences, which it's always good to teach, you know, spiritual people early about correspondences and the importance of finding things, you know, in plants native to your area that you can use instead of buying imported items that, you know, might not be, what is it called? Whenever it's a world trade good that was actually like humanely produced. There's a word for it. Anyway, that. Part 2, we get into spells. And of course she talks about what is a spell, friendship, love, and relationships. There's actually a spell in here about how to attract a friend. And I love spells like those. There was a really good one in the book Solitary Witch. Yes. And so this one is pretty nice. It's actually how I met one of my friends. They didn't tell me until I'd known him for about a year, and he was like, yeah, you know, it's crazy that I ran into you and you actually like talked to me and wanted to hang out with me because I did do a spell trying to find other witchy woo woo people. And I was like, you did what? So that was cute to know that I was somebody's, you know, spell coming to fruition, coming to be their friend. Those spells do work. I love that she talks about the evil eye as well. I've been doing some evil eye spells lately, and guys, it's good to have a few on hand. It really is. Money, luck, and career, home, and personal protection, which those are all, she hit all the major points, right? She hit all the major points. And of course, there are spells that bleed from one section into the other, kind of like friendship, love, and relationships kind of bleed into the health and healing. So there will be spells in here that are kind of in a gray area between categories, and I also like that too. All in all, this is a very, very good book, and let me just double check and see, because I don't think I read whether there was an index or not. No. There does not seem to be an index, though there is a spell index. So if you're looking for a specific spell, there's a spell index. I'll go ahead and just show you guys this so that you can see sort of the names of the spells that are in the part 2 section. And as usual, you know, pause to read. Again, very, very beautiful book. Everything is very well detailed and just very pretty. You know, some people don't like that, and that's cool. Once we get into the intermediate areas, we're less concerned with aesthetics. But remember whenever you were first starting out and you wanted something really pretty, but then you were disappointed that it was such a bad book even though it was so pretty? Be disappointed no longer, right? And you can hand this off to the next generation and they're going to love it. A brief word about this one. This being an older book, it's got all kinds of different things in it. And the reason why I thought they were reprints is because the titles are very similar, right? Charms, Talismans, and Amulets, A Complete Guide to Magical Enchantment. A Compendium of Spells, Rituals, and Occult Knowledge. Similar subtitles, right? So I thought that they had reprinted it, but it's not a reprint. This book also has, it's just got a lot. Before we go, I was going to show you the table of contents, but there's just so much here. Yeah, there's just so much here. But towards the back, she has some very, very interesting, and of course she talks about angel magic in this too, and a little bit of astrology. But she talks about the Celtic staves, right? Which up until I bought this book, I'd never heard of staves before. So there really is a little bit of everything in this book as well. This book is out of print, so it's a little more difficult to find. I would do a review on it, except I don't want to get people excited about a book that's going to be hard to find. But Pamela Ball has been writing for a while, and she does really nice compendium, all-in-one style books. So, yeah, she knocked it out of the park with this one. Again, if there's a young practitioner in your life or someone that's trying to get started, and you want to be able to hand them a book that's going to be on their level and something that they really enjoy, Pamela Ball's book of Practical Witchcraft is going to be the one. And it's also a very safe one as well. That's important. We don't want to just throw our young practitioners straight into like alchemy and all kinds of craziness, right? Beginner books have their place, and they are just as important as more experienced books. And I think that we really should start reading more of the beginner books so that we know what to recommend to beginners. If all we're reading are the really, expanded stuff, and the really experienced stuff, we're not going to be able to help a youngin' out, right? So I hope you guys enjoyed this book review and my ramblings. I do apologize for not posting for a while. Things have been a little hectic here, as they always are. Y'all know me. But anyway, until next time, happy dabbling, and bye-bye.